with the Phoenix Suns advancing to the Western Conference Finals after sweeping the Denver Nuggets in 4 games with a win in Game 4, 125-118 last night. Chris Paul was fantastic. I'll touch on him. This is the first time the Phoenix Suns have reached the Western Conference Finals since 2010. We all remember what happened in 2010. Lakers ended up beating the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. That was behind Meta World Peace, whose name at the time was Ron Artest, hit that buzzer beater after Kobe airballed the 3 at the end of Game 5. It was a tremendous comeback. That season, 2010, was the last time that the Phoenix Suns had reached the Western Conference Finals. And CP3 shined the brightest yesterday in the clutchest time of the season, in the biggest moment of the year, drops 37 points on 14 of 19 shooting to lead the Phoenix Suns. He was absolutely sensational, just a wizard displaying absolute mastery and skill. His performance was not only magical and marvelous, but what it did was further illuminate the value that he has on this team. 9 for 9 from the free throw line in fourth quarters in this series for Chris Paul. He has scored 43 points in 4 games in the fourth quarters on 16 of 19 shooting from the floor. Is Chris Paul in the series in the postseason? This is a guy who was banged up just 2 weeks ago against the Lakers with his shoulder. And I've always felt that Devin Booker is the most talented player and overall the best player on the Phoenix Suns. There's no question about that. But when we talk about value and who's the most valuable player, I've been consistent in saying that Chris Paul is that guy. Chris Paul is the most valuable player for the Phoenix Suns. And this postseason, and this series in particular, averaging 25.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, over 3 assists per game, shooting 60%, 62% to be specific, from the floor, and 75% from the three-point line. We always laud and praise other players for their efficiency, but Chris Paul, when he's on, especially from the mid-range, is one of the deadliest shooters that we've ever had in the NBA, in NBA history. Now, I don't know if I'm willing to go as far as to say he's the greatest point guard ever, which is what Mike Malone said about him in the postgame, potentially, at least hinted at it. But the performance was absolutely spectacular, and they needed it. And Devin Booker, listen, to his credit, he's been fantastic in these postseasons. He dropped also 34 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists in the win. He's combined to score 81 points in the 2 closeout games this postseason. 41 against the Lakers, and obviously 47 rather against the Lakers, and 34 last night against the Denver Nuggets. But this is what I've always said. And by the way, Chris Paul just became the oldest player ever at age 36 to score 35 plus points per game on over 70% shooting in the playoffs since 1965, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and LeBron James in both of those categories. So, but this is what I've always said about Chris Paul. We knew what this Phoenix Suns team was without him. We've seen that. We've seen that story before. They were atrocious. They were the lowly, sorry, moribund franchise, the Phoenix Suns. This was a team that was tanking, and last year they were barely scraping the barnacles of the playoff picture last year. And I've always said this about championship teams, that you need a bit of good fortune to win a championship. Championships are so fickle, and they're contingent on so many things going your way. Just ask the Brooklyn Nets, which I'll touch on later in the show coming up after this segment, is how ephemeral your window can be to win a championship. And so many breaks have to fall your way. You have to be a little bit fortuitous as far as the shots, as far as having different bounces go your way. And the Phoenix Suns have been on the right end of that up until this point, perhaps a favorable call. Right? I mean, when you think back to you can look at recent history in the NBA, dating back to 2015. That's all you have to look back to see that in practically every single season, with the exception of one, the past 6 seasons, you could argue injuries determine the outcome of the champion. 2015, Warriors and the Cavaliers, Kyrie Irving, broken kneecap, Kevin Love can't play. It's LeBron carrying Matthew Dellavedova, extending the Warriors to 6 games. The following season, different breaks go the Cavs' way. Draymond Green is suspended in Game 5. I, for one, think the Warriors would have won an NBA championship in 5 games if Draymond Green was playing. We'll never know. Right? In 2017, 2018, when the Warriors lost to the Raptors, KD, Clay, they go down. Raptors probably aren't winning that championship with those 2 guys out on the floor. I'll be consistent, even though I'm a Lakers fan. Last year, the same argument can be applied. Against the Miami Heat, no Bam Adebayo, and Goran Dragic for the majority of the series. So injuries play a role. And the reality is, champions do get a bit fortunate in that way. And right now, everything is breaking perfectly for the Phoenix Suns. Now, again, think about their path. You face the Los Angeles Lakers team with pretty much without AD for half the series, especially in the second half of the series when you needed him, even though the Lakers were up 2-1 in the series with him. You have a hobbled LeBron James, a compromised LeBron, no Jamal Murray in the second round. Obviously, the Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers seem to be pretty formidable and healthy, although Donovan Mitchell's ankle, he obviously hurt that ankle, tweaked that ankle, but everyone's dealing with different injuries like that. But then in the Eastern Conference, we're starting to see the Brooklyn Nets be a little bit more vulnerable. And they've started to all of a sudden hit the injury bug and be ravaged by injuries. Harden and KD and Kyrie now gone. We don't know for what extent and for how long. So when you're the Phoenix Suns, again, it doesn't discount what they've done, and it wouldn't discount what they've done if they were to go on to win a championship. But what it highlights is the importance of having that good fortune, being blessed by the NBA gods in a season. In order to win the championship, things have to fall your way. And right now for the Phoenix Suns, they have. Here's the other thing. And I'm going to touch on the Nikola Jokic ejection in a moment. But again, whether or not they go on to win this game with Nikola Jokic or without, the Phoenix Suns were clearly the better team in this game, in this series. They're up 83-75 at that point in the ball game with about 3-something remaining in the third quarter. The Phoenix Suns, and this is where you start to see the biggest discrepancies between average teams and good teams, between championship teams and teams that lose in the first round. The best teams across any sport and the best coaches are the ones that make the best second half adjustments. This second half, the second halves of these playoff games for the Phoenix Suns against the Denver Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns have outscored the Denver Nuggets by 34 points in just the third quarters. In 4 third quarters, Phoenix Suns outscored the Denver Nuggets by 34 points. In the second halves of these games, the Suns outscored the Denver Nuggets by 42 points in the second half overall of this series. So they were clearly the much more formidable team. And again, any professional team can have a great first half. It's about those second half adjustments. So big time congratulations to CP3. He was phenomenal. To Devin Booker. Then that's the other thing. You add in the storyline surrounding CP3 chasing that elusive championship. Just such an underrated, underappreciated basketball player. Monty Williams, the trials and tribulations, on a personal level that he's had to endure, the losses that he's had to endure, not just on the court, but off the court. And I'll leave it at that with him. So the adversity that they have had to overcome in this Phoenix Suns organization, Devin Booker, the narrative shifting that he's no longer a winning player. Yes, you need a guy in CP3 to come help turn that tide in your favor and to shift perhaps that epitaph for Devin Booker down the line. But he's played big. Jay Crowder, crucial veteran player, the role players. Big congratulations to CP3. The last time, this is just the second time in his career that he's reached the conference finals. Of course, he reached the Western Conference Finals with the Houston Rockets in 2017, but he pulled his hamstring with the Rockets up 3-2. So it appears that he's going to be a little bit healthier now, which is good. They're going to get ample rest, at least a week off before they face the winner of the Utah Jazz and the Clippers. So big shout out to Monty Williams and the Phoenix Suns. And a big shout out to the Denver Nuggets as well for battling and not making any excuses despite being without Jamal Murray. That was a big time loss for them.